Doing a overview of everything that you're going to find in the Delirium set. Now, the first thing I guess I should talk about is the Delirium die, which I sillily did not pull out of my bag. So let me grab that real fast. Here is the Delirium die. The Delirium die has, oddly enough, 6 faces for a normal 6-sided die. The first face is banish a card in your hand or discard pile. The second is draw 2 cards. The third is gain 3 runes. 4 is for killing power, 5 is points, and 6 is gain 6 insight. Since it costs you 5 insight at any time to roll this die, a 6 insight roll is either save your insight for later, use it for other purposes, or take an immediate reroll with a +1. You can't get any better than that. Roll that a whole bunch of times and you'll be a professional Delirium player in no time. That said, don't follow it up by rolling these, like I always seem to. Alright, so let's go through the monsters first. Demon Pups. This is a really important card in this set. So many good plays and high-end moments are just taking a pathetic 3-power hand. You got a heavy and a militia, nothing really great, but you do have some insight. Because for 3 power, you're going to get to draw a card. If you have an insight to spend, you get to draw an additional card. Yay! Another thing that's worth noting, I'm going to jump right over to one of these Void Heroes just to talk about it and get it out of the way. Anytime you have a hero effect that is when you destroy a monster, the order of operations in this set needed to be set really carefully. It overrules all previous sets and does not match what the digital does. This is very important. Please listen carefully to this. The way Delirium is supposed to be played is not enforced in the digital copy right now. Order of operations is very clear. Step 1, remove the thing you defeated from the center row, put it in the void. Replace it from the center deck. Step 2, if you have any hero effects that trigger as a result of the action you took, finish them right that moment. Step 3, take any rewards from any monsters that you destroyed. And then step 4 is check for any effects that might have hit the center. This is important because in this set there are lots of things that have fate auctions or just plain old standard Dreamborn give people insight. You do not get that insight until the very end of the chain of things. However, you do get the insight from a Void Rager the moment you kill a monster before you take its reward. If you have no insight, you kill a Demon Pump and you had a Void Rager in play, you get the insight, now you can spend it on the monster reward that comes immediately after to draw an additional card. There are 4 of these in the set, and they seem to come up all the time. Sometimes it's good for you, sometimes it's not. Alright, next up we have the Dream Eater. Dream Eater is another 3-cost monster. Very simple, 2 points, 1 insight. Insight's important, it's a thing, kill it when you can because it's a monster, nobody cares. Delirium Pixies. Now is a card we actually have to pay attention to. When a Delirium Pixie is on the field and you're trying to buy something big, you have to be really careful. Because this will let someone get a big card real fast. 3 runes when you kill a 4-cost monster. There are plenty of things that can kill a 4-cost monster instantly with an enlightened kill effect. 4 power is not hard to come by. If you were to roll the Delirium die and you were fishing for some more runes, if you got 2 draws, maybe you draw them. If you get 3 runes, well, there's your runes to buy it. If you get 4 power and there's a Delirium Pixie out here, look, you got 2 points and 3 runes. It's even better than this. This card is where a lot of the big 7 and 8 cost and even 9 cost cards in this set get purchased in my experience. If you are not thinking you're going to get to it first, or you don't have the ability to roll the die and gamble on it, this might even be worth a banish center row option just to get it off the table. They swing the game really big, really fast. Very, very critical 4-cost monster. Alright, now we have the Mammoth Beetle. The ugliest card ever. Artwork was originally intended for Valley of the Ancients, fun fact, but several of the testers vetoed it and said it was awful, but they had the artwork, so they decided to put it in this set. Reasons. I don't care. 3 points is solid. Each opponent destroys a construct. You can pay 1 to destroy an additional construct. If your opponent has Void and Lifebound and Enlightened constructs, this is a great card. If your opponent has Mechana constructs, I have a piece of advice for you. Time this very well or don't kill it at all. If they've just shuffled and you're going to put those constructs into the discard pile, they're going to have to go through their whole deck again, then they're going to shuffle, then they're going to have to draw them in order to play them. This is perfectly fine to kill. If you know they have more Mechana cards, Mechana constructs specifically undrawn in their deck, then this might be reasonable to kill. If they have no Mechana constructs that they haven't played yet, if they don't have Scrap Weavers or whatever these things are called, Scrapbot Scrappers, if they don't have any of that stuff in their deck going crazy, do not kill this. Kill 2 cultists, take 1 less point, and save yourself a lot of pain. I cannot tell you how often people just kill this because it's there and it's a monster and it's a thing, and they actually screw themselves over in the process. I'm going to set this to the side, and I'm going to keep it nearby so I can talk about it again when I get to those Mechana constructs and can show you why. Bleak Toad, my personal favorite monster. 4 cost, 4 points, awesome. Banish card in your hand and discard pile, pay 2 to do it again. If at all possible, I always pay the 2 to do it again. Even if I had, say, 3 runes in my hand and the 4 power, and it's like, oh look, there's some awesome 3 cost card. Nah, screw it. I'm just going to banish an apprentice, pay the 2, banish another apprentice right from my hand. It's worth it in this set just to thin rapidly. Actually, it's worth it in pretty much every deck builder in every situation. The only time I would consider not doing it is if there's no more monsters and all I have is killing power and no buying power. Getting a Mystic in your deck, at least 1 or 2, is really important to take advantage of a thin deck, or you're always going to be drawing 2 or 3 runes even though you're getting your best cards all the time. It just doesn't always give you the momentum you need. You need to get 1 or 2 really big cards. Buying power is important for that. Pretty much all the time you're going to want to banish twice. Oak of Souls, one of the most underwhelming monsters. 3 points, roll the die. The best thing you can do here is roll that 6, because then you can save the insight for later and use it on a future turn rather than rolling right away. 5 points, you're never going to complain about this becoming an 8-point monster. The 4 power, if there's good stuff to kill, I guess you're not going to complain that much. It's at least 2 more points, makes it reasonable, 5 for 5 points. 2 cards, depending upon the timing, if you've got your best cards in your hand and you kill this and draw 2 cards and have to shuffle, and your best cards miss the shuffle, you're actually hurting. This might have been damaging to you. The 1, well, that's either a yay moderate benefit or, oh crap, I can't even get anything out of it. Not the best one for me, but the only reason it's not the best for me is because it forces you to roll that exact second. A better option would be to take 3 insight. You need 5 to roll the die, but this is the majority of it, and you can save it up until you need to use it or use it on different stuff other than just rolling the die. Alright, here is where the game takes on a whole new shape that's not normal in Ascension. The 2 Torment Legionaries absolutely make and break so many games. I can't tell you how often at World Championships for this and at US Championships that the only thing I did was buy lots of heavies, kill this thing, get my hands on an Emery or etc., win the game, end of story. It's so good. In fact, this 6 points for 6 cost and the possibility of something else, sure, there might not be a Dreamborn out there. Note that it does replace before you take its reward, so even if the replacement is Dreamborn, you're still going to get to pick it up. You can pick up a Dartha for free with this. A 9-point card that has a nice effect. Possibly a really, really nice effect. On top of the 6 points, get 15 points just for killing this thing first. 6 power is not that hard to get. In fact, I feel like I roll this die more often than not trying to get 4 power when I already have 2 and a decent number of runes, because if I get runes, I'm going to buy a nice big card that's shiny out there. If I get points or draw or whatever, great. But if I get power, I'm going to get that biggest Dreamborn card for free. Torment Legionary wins games. Do not ignore him. Banish him quickly if you're worried about it. As a note, if you already have Emery and you have center row banish the other Torment Legionary or both of them as fast as you can, just to put them in the discard pile, because your Emery can still hit them when it's appropriate. No one else can, and it's going to put them on the bottom of the deck anyway, so you don't really care about it. Then we've got the other 6 here I almost flipped past. 5 points and steal 2 from each opponent. In a multiplayer game, this is way better than otherwise, because then it becomes 2, 4, 6 insight, possibly. Depends on what they've got. If they've got nothing, you get nothing. Oh well. Solid, though. Carrion, 5 points and 10 insight. That's 2 rolls of the die. Almost everyone rolls it instantly. Depending upon if I'm afraid of the next card down, I normally roll it instantly too, but I tend to save insight more than most people. Alright, next card down. I should have grabbed my other set of this that has the signed copy from Glover, but that's fine. You get the point. This is the world champion from Valley of the Ancients and his first card of 2, because he also won the Delirium Championship. 7 points. Choose a player to steal all their insight and take a card from their hand. Add it to your hand. Sometimes you steal a starter and it's not all that cool. At least their hand was a little weaker that one time. Sometimes you steal Cetra and go to town and win a game by a 1-point margin. That's always more fun. This is an absolute game swinger, so obviously he's here to amp the stakes up. If you have a lot of insight and he's on the center row, you got to be afraid. Somebody might be able to gain more insight than you expect. Roll the die, get 4 more power. Boom, there goes Glover, end of story for you. Alright, let's go to the Void cards. Nihil Chemist. I'm a huge fan of this. Cost 1, it's a militia, but it banishes a card, and you can pay 2 to recur. Now, the recur is not just the banish part. You also get the 1 power again. Turning it into a heavy for 2 insight isn't that great, but you can do it when you know you need that 1 more power and it's worth it to you. And you can also just rapidly thin your deck. I'm a big fan of it, especially with how many other echo effects there are that this guy's going to be able to set off. I'm actually going to set him here so I can talk about one of those echo effects. Void Rager. 2 power, just a simple heavy infantry, but you get an extra bonus insight if you kill a monster in the center. Arbiter Circlet, nice, standard, 1 power a turn, very effective, helps boost all your turns. It's Dreamborn, so buying it gives you stuff. Interesting thing is, if you have an Arbiter Circlet in play, and you also have Echo cards, people might want to avoid killing a Mammoth Beetle, just because you will have the option to stick your Arbiter Circlet in the discard pile on purpose just to set off your Echo. Yep, done that more than a few times. 3 of these, very effective little construct. Don't ignore them. I feel like I picked them up faster than most players, but it's exactly what you expect it to be. Alright, here is the first super broken card in this set. First of all, having 3 runes on any card that costs 4 is always not okay in my book. That is just too big. Having 2 power and 3 runes, oh my goodness. And Echo is the easiest effect to set off. This isn't like Serenity where you have to draw it at the perfect time or it's not effective. This is, oh look, I'm going to buy a 1-cost guy in the center, stick him in my discard pile, then I'm going to play my Void Speaker and get 3 runes back for my 1. Now I'm up 2 extra runes just because I happen to own a Void Speaker and want Void cards. Oh look, you killed my Arbiter Circlet with a Mammoth Beetle. Thank you for the 3 more runes this turn. I'm now going to buy a gigantic monster of a card. Thanks! Yeah, this is terrifying. And just the natural ability to buy Void cards and happen to draw this later in your hand, so some are already in your discard pile from previous purchases. You don't even have to manipulate the deck. It does it for you sometimes. Alright. Next up is the Shield Bearer. This is one of my absolute favorites. One of my top 2 first round buys. I will actually take the Void Speaker over the Shield Bearer, just for the record. This is nuts. It's got way too much potential to get to those big, huge cards. But the Shield Bearer, when it hits the center row, starting with the first player, you auction bidding with Insight. If the first player bids 1, the next player has to bid 2. If you ever don't bid, you're out of the auction. You keep bidding until you either don't have enough insight to overbid the previous person, or you do not wish to. Whoever wins the auction immediately gets to take the effect. Draw a card, banish card in hand, or discard pile. I love when this hits the center row at the start of the game if I'm second, because whoever goes second gets 1 insight, third gets 2, and fourth gets 3 insight just to start the game out. Whoever goes last can bid everything they've got. Even if you've gained extra insight from Dreamborn, everyone gains it equally, so whoever goes last has the advantage. They can spend it, draw a card, banish one of the almost certainly militia in their hand. If they happen to have 6 apprentices, maybe they don't even take the banish option if there's a nice 6-cost card out there. All depends on what the circumstance is, but most of the time you're going to get a quick, easy banish, and it's going to set your first hand into a weird cycle, where as soon as you finish round 1, you're immediately going to have to shuffle for 1 card, putting probably this back into your next hand, and guaranteeing you have a discard pile when you play it, and have 6 cards so that you draw one of your last ones, and oh look, now you can have another banish for free from your discard pile. Doesn't even hurt your hand. Really like the way that this influences the beginning of the game. Mid-game, it just becomes more echo fodder. It's nice. It's never going to be bad. It always draws itself. The banish you can ignore if you don't want to at the time. Dark Tome Librarian, one of the worst 5-cost cards that the Void has ever been given. Void gets really weird 5-cost cards. They're either way too good or just pathetic. This falls in the mostly pathetic category. I'll still buy it sometimes because it's still got banish on it. It's going to give me insight that I can save from turn to turn until I want to roll the die several times. Most of the time when I'm rolling the die, I either roll it because my enemy has a good chance of getting what we're racing for, or I have 2 rolls saved up. I've got 10 insight, and 3 of the sides are good. If I draw 2 cards, if I get runes, if I get power, I'm going to be able to do something I want. If I get 2 attempts at that, with a 50-50 on good stuff, oh wait, the 6 is pretty solid because it's just a free roll. Well, that means 2/3 of the time on each roll I'm going to get what I want, and I get to do it twice. I have a decent shot at what I want. A 1 in 9 chance of failure is not bad odds. Insight is going to help you do that. So don't discount it as an absolutely useless card. It's just not that great overall. For a 5-cost, I wanted more bang. The Nilhammer. Oh my gosh, this card is spectacular. Gain 3 power just by having a Void card in your discard pile. Oh look, snag a Nihil Chemist for 1. Now I have my Void card. There's 3 power this turn immediately. If that's not crazy enough for you, what if you get your hands on one of the 3 Scrapbot Scrappers? Take 2 more power, return this construct to your hand, then play it again, and again get 3 power. So now you're up to 8 power just on playing 1 card and happening to own Void cards in your discard pile. That is nuts. This card gets way too powerful way too quickly, and it's really hard to starve someone out of an entire faction. You cannot play your game where that player is going to get no Void. They get their hands on this, they're eventually going to get use out of it, probably going to get decent use out of it even. Have 1 more militia in your hand and you can kill a 4-cost monster, turn it into 3 runes, turn it into some banishes, maybe kill other people's constructs. This is one of the constructs worth destroying with the Mammoth Beetle. I very rarely have any remorse when this hits the pile, even if it sets off an echo on something else. It's just important to get rid of it. Alright, Naka Shadeborn. Here's some of the craziness the Void can do. 3 power and return a Void card in your discard pile to your hand. That's awesome. You get to choose. If you have more than 1 Void, pick whatever you want. Even if it's just an Arbiter Circlet coming back for 1 more power, it's 1 more power you don't have to draw in a new hand because it stays out there as a construct. This is solid. The Recur is where it gets bonkers. For just 3 insight, you get to make sure that you have 6 power. Since you normally pay 5 insight just to get 4 when you roll the die and get power, paying 3, 2 less, to get 1 less power, well worth it. 6 power on a single card, that's almost got you all the way to the biggest monsters just on its own. If you returned any Void card, you almost certainly have more power to be able to hit Glover with just one play of Naka. Absolutely ridiculous. If you happen to have a lot of Void in your discard pile, you can even do it twice. Note that it's a May return Void. Every once in a while you have this weird situation where you're returning a Void Speaker, you're recurring for the extra power, and you don't want to pay, or you don't want to return this Nihil Chemist because it's going to set off that Void Speaker echo, and you're like, you know what? I'm going to just take my 6 power, return 1 Void, and I'm not going to return the second one. That's an option. You do not have to do the return. That's a May effect. Alright, and now for the Big Daddy. Cetra, normally a Lifebound card, but things are all screwed up in the world of Delirium. It's pure pandemonium in here, and now Cetra is the Void Mother. 4 power, and when you defeat a monster, you put a hero straight on top of your deck from the center row. This is very much like a normal Cetra Lifebound effect, but mixed with the power and the killing monster thing. Cetra is amazing. Be able to get yourself an Emery, a Core, all kinds of other really high-cost cards. Maybe just stick a Naka on top of your deck. Hope that you don't have to shuffle, so then you can just return Cetra with Naka and go to absolute town on the game in a real hurry. This is a monster of a card. 5 points on it? Yes, please. Most Cetra cards have historically been like 4 points for their 7 cost. They're never the really high scorers on their own. This one isn't, because it's in the Void family, and the Void family always gets screwed on points. Oh wait, this one didn't get screwed on points. Most of the others kind of did, but they had 2 cards that did not get screwed on their in-game honor value. It's really nice for once. Alright, now I'm done with this. Let's talk about Mechana. Mechana, the first thing I want to warn you about right away, their constructs get crazy. You almost have to buy the Mechana constructs just as a policy of exclusion. If you buy it and you get to play it one time and you get one effect, oh well, you have some in-game scoring, it wasn't great, nothing exploded. But if you left it, your opponent got it and got more than one, the way that it ramps up so fast into an epic cascade that you can't risk it. Buy it, get almost nothing out of it, and feel really good about yourself having prevented anything from crazy from happening. If you happen to get a few more yourself and it does go crazy for you, well, you're smiling. Yay, happy. Steelweaver, really, really good 1-cost card. Gain 1 rune. When you acquire a construct, put it straight into play. That's saving you a draw later on and starting to get you the construct effect right away. When you pay 1 to recur, 2 things about it that's interesting is you get the 2nd rune, so it becomes like a Mystic for 1 insight. That's pretty solid for a 1 cost. But this will, once this turn, put a construct into play. Does not have to be triggered. It doesn't say the next time you acquire a construct. It says once this turn. So the first Steelweaver effect can be used on 1 construct. The recurred 2nd Steelweaver effect can be used another time, just once per time. 2 total cards are going to just go straight into play if they're constructs. Note that it doesn't say acquire a construct in the center row. If you're playing this in a mix set and you buy something from a Dreamscape or whatever else, it's still going to go straight into play. It's really, really nice for sneaking in something from a Dreamscape. Alright, Scrapbot Scrapper. So this card, if I were to do a numerical rating system out of 10, this is roughly a 17 out of 10. Yeah. I cannot emphasize enough that if there's a Scrapbot Scrapper in the center row, I'm going to buy it. The only thing I might buy over this is a Cetra or an Emery or a Dartha. I will not buy another construct. I will probably even avoid my awesome Void Speaker that I was talking about earlier and how awesome that thing is. This card makes games crazy. If it just becomes a heavy infantry for you, you're not screwed by doing that. But you kept someone from going crazy with this return a construct to your hand effect. There's 3 of these guys in the deck, and they are absolute nightmares of a combo. So I'm going to leave these right here so I can talk about them repeatedly. My goodness, that's a lot of glare. Oh well. Clockwork Shield. This is the first of the Mechana constructs. All of the constructs in this set that are Mechana are going to have this same formula. Once per turn, when you play one, including this one, you get one for each you control. So that means the first mechana you play, you get its effect once. The second mechana you play, you get each of their, you set off the ones you already have, effects twice. The third one, you get 3, 3, and 3, and they're all going to give some kind of resource. The shield is going to give you points. The blade is going to give you power and happens to have that nice Dreamborn effect. The helm is probably my least favorite of them. It gives you insight for each mechana you have, but I have had 100 insight games because of Scrapbot Scrapper and Helm. Pick up a Clockwork Shield, drop it down, get 3 power, or 3 points, 3 power, 3 insight. Even if I'm going to play a second Scrapbot Scrapper, I'm going to return one of the other ones instead of the Helm. But once per turn, all of them set off. So it goes crazy in a hurry. And then you have the Familiar. The Familiar might be the second most crazy of them all because it's a rune for every mechana, and you're really going to go to town buying stuff. The craziest one, though, is clearly Dartha. Once per turn when you play a mechana construct, including this one, draw a card for each one you have. If I've got just 2, let's say I have a Shield and a Dartha. I play Dartha when I first get him. He's my second one to go into play. I get 2 points. I draw 2 cards. Oh look, I drew a Scrapbot Scrapper. I'm going to pick up Dartha, play him again. I don't get 2 points because I've already done it, but now I draw 2 cards. Oh look, another Scrapbot Scrapper. Now I'm going to draw 2 more cards. Yay, I'm up to 4 power or 7 card hand compared to what I started with, and I still haven't done anything this game. Alright, next one is the Salvage Yard. The Salvage Yard is completely useless on your own. It's a 7-point card, it's Dreamborn. Those are reasons to buy it just because. But if you happen to have some of these clockwork things, it allows you at the start of your turn to put it in your hand. And then when you play it again, it's going to set off every one of these constructs you have. Note that if you have a Salvage Yard and a Clockwork Familiar in your hand because you just picked it up and you've already got some stuff on the table, play the Salvage Yard first, trigger the stuff on the table for 2, then play your Familiar or whatever else it is and trigger it for 3. Don't trigger for 2, then trigger nothing. Trigger, then trigger your big thing. Alright. The only remaining mechana card to talk about, all of these cards were just constructs except for the Scrapbot Scrapper. We've got the Infernal Templar and Emma Ironheart. The Infernal Templar, Inferna Templar, is a Fate auction. You win the auction, you get to draw a card. If you happen to have 2 constructs, doesn't matter what kind, you draw an additional card. A draw 2 card is spectacular if you're getting your hands on constructs. Given how many Arbiter Circlets and other things are in this set, it's pretty easy to get your hand on 2 constructs. I value this card pretty strongly. At the very least, it replaces itself and it's 3 points at the end of the game. That's always good. Getting this double effect, maybe even copying it with some other stuff, totally worth it. And it incentivizes you to do the things Emma Ironheart wants you to do, which is gain 3 runes. Yay! You can pay 3 to recur and get 6 runes instead for just 3 insight. That's going to buy pretty much anything you want. But if you happen to have 2 or more constructs, you get 3 power as well as the 3 runes. This feels a lot like the Hadron Berserker in Dreamscape, which was 3 runes or 3 power you get to pick. If you had, I think it was 3 constructs, you get both. Well, in this case, you just need 2 constructs to get both, but it costs 1 more. And, hey, you can do it twice. So if you have 3 insight and 2 constructs, you're going to get 6 and 6. Good luck having a bad turn after that. You're just going to find that a real tough strategy. These mechana constructs, on their own, might not be all that impressive. Gain 1, gain a little bit of power. But when you combo them, even just a single Clockwork Blade, yay, a power. Let's say it was in your hand already. You play it, you get 1 power. You play a Scrapbot Scrapper, you pick it up, you got 2 power from this, 1 from previous, you play it again, now you're up to 4 power. If it's already in play, this combo is still 3 power. Having a Arbiter Circlet is always going to be 4 power minimum with a Scrapbot. You can do a lot of work on these 4-cost monsters with just this one card in your hand and owning a construct of any kind. And there's so many of them that it's hard to keep them away from you. I cannot emphasize enough that this is straight up... You know what? I'm going to change my rating. This is a 30 out of 10. If I had 6 to spend, I wouldn't buy the Clockwork Familiar or Core. I would buy 2 of these if at all possible. Alright. Next up, we're going to move on to the Lifebound. The Lifebound in this set are also pretty nuts. Everything's pretty nuts, except for maybe Enlightened. Enlightened feels a little weak. Delirium Nymph. 1 rune. Draw 2 cards if you can get a Unite. Nice thing about Lifebound, you want as many of them as you can so you can set off Unites as often as possible. Every time you set off this Unite, you're rolling in it. It's just way too good for a 1 cost. I would not be interested in this top effect if it weren't for the Unite. It just doesn't matter. But having more Lifebound in my deck, even if it was just this top effect, depending upon my other cards, I still might have bought it. Alright, Dreamscape Dryad. 3 points every time you play it, and every time you play it, you have the opportunity to pay 3 Insight to gain 3 points again. Well, since you pay 5 Insight to roll the die and potentially get 5 points, which is arguably the best thing late in the game, this is the same ratio. 3 for 3, 5 for 5. You're getting a mini die roll that you can control and know that that's what you're getting. There's a couple of these in the deck. Highly recommend them if you're going for a fast, in-the-game, quickly kind of strategy. Pay that recur, and pay it frequently. It's going to shave several rounds off of the game, and I cannot stress enough how much those last rounds matter to someone that went for a long-term build. If you know, because you're planning to, end it early, all you do is cash in on quick, efficient buys, buy those 4 costs for 3 points, buy the power, just kill cultists, buy heavy infantry as many times as you can with your 6 power instead of investing in mystics. Just small little things that just points faster than your opponent, and the game ends before they can put a better deck to use. Dreamscape Dryad is not to be underestimated. Alright, Pollen Pixie. Here's where you get your solidly everyone loves this card. It's a Dreamborn, you're going to get Insight for buying it, get 1 for just hitting the center row, 3 for 2 is already solid, and it's a Mystic that comes with a bonus point every time you play it. You can't go wrong with that. Alright, here is your first Lifebound construct, which is making it easier to get your 2 construct requirements for some of these other things. Once per turn, acquire a hero in the center row, put it on top of your deck. Stacking the deck is great when you have plenty of draw effects. You have Delirium Nymphs and stuff. Maybe you have a draw card in your hand and a Nymph in your hand. You use a little bit of power to put a Pollen Pixie on top. Use your other draw effect, and then when you play it, yay, you get to set off this Unite because you knew it was coming. So many draw effects in this set. Just so many of them. Maybe you'll even get lucky and stack the deck with that other Lifebound looking for the Unite, and it'll just happen to flip out a Shield Bearer or an Inferno Templar, and you'll get an auction ability to draw that card you just stacked. That happens a little more frequently than I would like, and it's really cool when it does happen and you've planned that maybe it will. Alright, this is basically the card from Return of the Fallen, but it is center row exclusive, and instead of being 5 costs for 4 points, it's 3 costs for 2 points. You cannot put heavies or mystics on top of your deck. Watch for people trying to do that. Even at World Championships, people tried to do it several times. Not sure if they realized or were just trying to sneak one over. I don't know, but it's worth noting, center row only. That also means if you have a Dreamscape deck or something and you get a hero from there, you're not going to be able to stack it with an Ogo War Tree. Dream Guide. This is really nice as well. If you're going for a fast deck, that Pollen Pixie might actually be better just for the 1 point every time you play it. But Insight is your lifeblood in an Insight-heavy deck like Delirium. Getting an Insight every time you play it and a Mystic effect, you can't go wrong with that. It's just really solid, and it's more Lifebound to set off Lifebound stuff. Of all the 4 costs in this deck, I actually think this might be one of my least favorite, unless I've already got Lifebound. But it doesn't matter. It's still solid. You're not going to ignore it. Alright, here's where we get into Stupid Land. Draw a card. Alright, so it doesn't cost me anything. It costs me 4 for 3 points, and every time I draw it, I'm just going to get a replacement card? Sure, I'm already sold. I spend that kind of money on Mechana constructs just intending to put them in play and leave them there for the whole game for their in-game score bonus, because it was cheap, efficient rune use, and wasn't going to hurt my deck since it was a construct. I'd play it once and be done with it. This is even better than that. I don't even have to play it once. Every time I play it, I get the draw. But if I happen to get my Unite, I get 4 power. Does that say 2 power? No, that says 4 power. I have to be tripping. There's no way they'd give a Unite for 4. They've had all kinds of Lifebound cards in the past that give 2 power with their Unite bonus, like a Mystic plus 2 power if you have a Lifebound before it, or if you've got enough energy. 2 power's fine. We even have a Werebore in Deliverance, the set I did yesterday. You can check out the Deliverance rundown. And the Werebore gives 3 power on it. Alright, we're just going to go straight to 4. 2 Tusk Riders, draw them together, kill Glover, call it the end of the day. This is absolutely bonkers good. Alright, Vineweaver. This card gets a lot of hate. I don't know why it gets hate. First of all, every time it hits the center row, your game is getting shortened already, because unless both players are completely out of insight, someone's going to outbid to get 4 points. On average, if you can bid 4 or less and get it, you're good. Don't feel bad about, oh, me and my opponent both have plenty of insight, and start the bidding with 4 on your turn. If they pay 5, let them have it. They paid a little bit over to get a little bit under the ratio, and you've got resources to use on other stuff. But regardless, someone's getting this 4 points. That's going to shorten the game by a reasonable amount. Every time you play it, you get 4 points. I can't tell you how many games I've just gotten Vineweavers and Dreamscape Dryads. The Dryads are much more efficient. 3 points and only cost 2 versus 4 points for 5. But it's not really about the use of the card when you play it. The Dreamscape Dryad being able to pay 3 and get 6 instead is actually like so good. People give this card some hate too. This is an amazing card in that game real fast. 6 honor is a 10th of the game. And every time you play it, if you've saved your insight from other stuff, you get to empty a 10th of the game. You're going to burn the game in 6 rounds, 7 rounds. Do it. Do it fast. Vineweaver is going to help you get there. Buy these. They're really good. If you're wanting the game to go long, you're going to need to banish center row this or buy it and don't play it. That's a weird concept. Have a card that you can play and get 4 points and you choose not to. Late in the game, good players will actually discard these things and not take their direct honor gain, waiting to have a big explosive turn that does way more. If you've got an Emery or a Cetra, if you're looking for a Glover hit that you just need to get your Emma Ironheart, don't help your opponent in the game before your deck can do all of the big things it needs to do. That said, leaving this in the center is really risky because you don't control when it happens otherwise. I'd still leave it in the center on occasion if my opponent's rushing. Maybe I can pick it up on a later turn. I had better options. This controls game pace. Honor is everything in Ascension. It controls game pace. It controls how explosive your ending is. 4 points is nothing to shake a fist at. Alright. Core World Breaker. Here is your big Lifebound awesome guy. This is normally Core is a Mechana, but in this case he's our Lifebound because Delirium nonsense. He's a Mystic and draws a card. Holy crap, I'm already sold. Can't go wrong with that. Set off all your other Lifebound Unites easily, get 2 runes every time he pops up into a hand just cuz. But let's throw in some other nonsense. If you played at least 2 other Lifebound heroes, so this is your 3rd Lifebound total, gain 6 power? Yes, 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 all the yes. Can't go wrong with that. In fact, keep in mind if you ever copy him, because there is a enlightened copy in this set, the copy is not Lifebound. But if you've played 1 Lifebound core and a core copy, the core copy is going to get the 6 because he sees 2 other Lifebounds. Doesn't say 3 total, it says 2 other, which is a nice wording for this particular effect. And then we got Evie. Evie's one of those vanity cards. someone's child. Acquire a hero without paying its cost. Stick it straight on top of your deck. You can pay 3 to do it again. Nice thing about this effect is you stack the deck, you replace it, whatever you just bought from the center row, then you get to choose whether to pay the recur. Note, you can't come back later in the turn, you've done some other monster killing and stuff, and you're like, oh yeah, now I'm going to pay the heavy recur and put this big guy that just came out on top. Nope. All at once, as you play the card top to bottom. But after you've fully resolved the top, you will have one new option potentially to recur it on. Can't really go wrong with Stack the Deck. It is weird, though, that the very specific end-all, be-all of the Lifebounds is cheaper than another card. Cetra was the biggest. Dartha was absolutely the biggest. Now let's talk about Enlightened. I warned you already, Enlightened seems a little lackluster in this set. They're support cards in every set. They're just more support than normal. Gain 2 insight every time you play a Dreamscape Diviner. If it's early enough in the game, you can expect to stack up a lot of insight from this, wait until you've got 10, roll the dice, and everything that you should have had in those turns is now going to explode into a single turn all at once. That's not bad, but it's not good. Having 4-card hands regularly just doesn't cut it. I typically don't pick it up unless I've got maybe 5 runes, and buying this 1 cost will leave me more options flipping from the center deck I might want. I buy it to get a little churn in the center, or I buy it late in the game because it's worth a point just to own it, and it was a nice efficient rune conversion to points. Not the greatest card ever, for sure. Dimension Monk. This is maybe one of the greatest cards ever. Draw a card to replace itself. Pay 1 to recur and draw a second card. Being able to draw a 6-card hand just for 1 insight, totally worth that little boost in your power. Otherwise, always replaces itself at least, doesn't do any harm. Maybe you have an Ogo War Tree and you can stack something with part of your buying power and then draw it knowing what you're getting and set off some Unites or something. Lots of good ways to use this. It's not going to make or break the game on who has the most Dimension Monks. There are so many other cards that will make and break the game in a much, much more noticeable way, but it's a solid 2-cost card. Alright, here's one of the most situational cards ever. If you can buy the Dragon's Eye on turn 1 or 2 and there weren't any other cards I've emphasized are absolutely vitally important, like the Void Speaker or the other 4-cost Shield Bearer, getting one of these Lifebound Unite guys, I'd definitely take Dragon's Eye over 2 of these if it was first round. When you play it, you get an insight. Every turn, when you have no cards in your discard pile, you get an insight. Every time you cycle your deck, you're going to get an insight. Every time you play a Scrapbot Scrapper on it, you're going to get at least 1 insight. If you happen to have an empty discard pile, you're actually going to get 2. So Scrapbot Scrapper in your first hand, Dragon's Eye empty pile, if it's already in play, you get 1 just for having it in Serenity. Pick it up, play it again, get 2. Getting insight that rapidly will give you plenty of options for Delirium, and you can go crazy with it. If it's not really early in the game, the amount of insight you're going to get for it, you probably wanted to play a hero and get a better effect in that 5-card hand than just putting this into play. That said, Scrapbot Scrappers make its value go up. I already pointed that out. Heavy Banish decks, you're going to have Serenity almost every turn. If you can get below 10 cards or have enough draw so that your effective deck is below 10 cards, every turn you're going to draw some cards, have to shuffle to draw 1 more, and yay. Every turn, every couple of turns, you're going to get this effect at least that much. Dreamstone, the most underwhelming thing in the deck. That said, you really gotta give it credit for being a storage mechanism. You pay 3 that you didn't know what to do with now. Honestly, a Heavy or a Mystic might have been a better choice, depending upon what's out in the center and what you're fighting for and how your deck looks. Maybe those would have been better because you control and get to use them over and over. But if I have one of those Steel Weavers that can put this straight into play, I'm much less likely to bat an eye at it and put it in play. Whenever I need a little boost to my turn, This is one more guaranteed, trash it, roll the die, hope I get what I'm looking for. No matter what I get out of this die, even a 1, I'm probably going to be reasonably happy that I spent 3 on it. If I didn't have to draw it and weaken a hand. Cannot emphasize enough, mid-game you don't want junk cluttering up your hands. It has to have been a policy of exclusion where it was too dangerous to leave it for an opponent, too dangerous for what might have flipped out and replaced it later. But if you can put it straight in play, something like that, this becomes much more of a viable option. Otherwise, ignore it. It's not even there. It doesn't exist. Aegis Knight. This is probably the most sought-after turn 1 card. If it comes out in the opening thing, whoever gets the Fate Auction effect is going to get a banish a card in their hand and immediately replace it with a heavier Mystic. Note that you can do this in the discard pile. Let's say it's your turn, you play your whole hand, unwittingly playing a militia because you're stupid and didn't realize it mattered. Well, you're not stupid, you probably just didn't realize it mattered. Maybe your opponent will let you do a redo and hold on to it since you haven't spent it yet, maybe not. But regardless, you can actually upgrade something in your discard pile. End of turn 2, I've got 5 cards, 6 cards in my discard pile, whatever I bought the last turn, the rest of my hand is in deck is in my hand, I play the whole hand, I do whatever it is, and then the very last thing I buy or kill gets replaced with this. Oh darn. Do I just ignore it? No. Your opponent has a hand of fresh cards, and now they can get rid of a militia and turn it into a mystic for a much bigger reach buy, or get rid of an apprentice and turn it into a heavy and get that much bigger reach kill for whatever nice things happen to be out there. Giving them that control to do whatever they want with their current hand, it's better for you to win the auction, spend some extra insight, banish a card in your discard pile and upgrade it for later, than it is to just let this go to them for free. So many people let me just have 1-cost Aegis Knights. Even if you just drive the cost up, an important thing on auctions is to know what a reasonable price is. You might bid 2, knowing that you can get rid of a card in your discard pile, and they're still going to outbid you for 3, take that good effect, but now you at least made them pay a reasonable cost for it. Maybe they'll run out of insight in the next auction, you'll be able to come back in some other way. Making them waste resources is important. Yeah, just don't give things away way under their value. Alright, the Templar General. There are people, namely Akula Minori, who really, really like this, and I'm sorry, Randall, this card sucks. It has its moments, but early in the game, this card sucks. It doesn't kill Torment Legionaries. It doesn't kill Glover. It can't kill anything really big and important. If there's always a Demon Pup and you're always drawing a replacement card, it was at least a free point. That's not easy to argue with. But if you had a heavy infantry, chances are you still probably could have killed that Demon Pup and replaced itself. Almost every card in this cost range in the set I would rather have than this. One of the things you do have to be aware of, though, sometimes I buy it just to get that insight immediately and to keep my opponent from having the Serenity effect. Serenity is very annoyingly not described on this card. If you have no discard pile, you can put it straight in your hand when you buy it. That's wonderful. Maybe you're going to kill something, you know exactly what it is, you can see what your target is, or you're fishing. But that's one time. Every time you draw this card for the rest of the game, it's going to be a 1 to 4 point play, maybe a little bit of bonus effect. Demon Pup's probably being your best option after the Banisher guy. But you did not buy anything big. You did not kill anything big. This did not contribute to the big explosive endgame, and Delirium is all about that big explosive endgame. So many games just snowball out of control. This does not help your snowball. That's all I want to emphasize about it. It's not a snowball kind of card. It's conditional. Sometimes its conditions get met and it's very nice and efficient and replaces itself. Most of the time, I don't see it being worth that compared to something like a Void Speaker. Or even a Dream Dealer. Now, I will be the first to tell you that I overvalue this card. I only read the first sentence, though, in my defense. Draw a card, then banish a card in the center row. That's all I actually read. Banishing a monster that somebody else can get to. If you have Emery, banishing a monster and saving it so it's exclusive to you in the void. Banishing those big Mechana constructs so your opponent can't get a roll of them because they've got them started. Banishing something that you're afraid of them scrap botting. So many things that Banish Center Row does. The better you are as a player, the more valuable this becomes. If you and your friends are still pretty new to the game, Banish Center Row might not be getting the mileage it should. But if you control the game pace, you get rid of the valuable rune conversions when you're going for a power deck. Or if you get rid of the monsters and the power converters into points when you're going for a long deck, you're going to stall the game significantly. Not just one turn, but several turns by limiting those honor conversions. Making them get there by just killing cultists, the game just drags on until you get your big, massive combos. If you're going for a short game, every turn that you cut off, late game turns in Delirium are often 10 to 20 point turns all at once with these big explosive in-game things. Shutting just one of those turns down is a 10-point swing. Now, let's read the rest of it. If there's an Enlightened Lifebound Mechana and Void card, you do replace before you check this, roll the Delirium die. Free die rolls. It's pretty rare in 6 cards to have one of all 4 factions out there. There are more monsters than there are faction cards. At the very least, you do know how to increase your odds. If there's 2 of a faction out there, one of those might be a better target for your banish. If there are monsters out there, those are always going to be more likely to get the one you're missing if you can see 3. If you don't see 3 different factions, you don't care about this bottom effect. Note that if there's 3 different factions and you think you're losing hard, maybe you do banish a monster or a duplicate faction card trying to get this free roll. Maybe it's going to get you back in the game somehow. But overall, use this for the center row control. Don't use this wishing for a die roll. Sometimes it happens, but it's not what this card is about. This card is about control the game. That's what I'm all about in Ascension, is control the game. Alright. Let's move on to the Divine Ascara. We're almost done here. The Divine Ascara, you're going to copy the effect of a hero played, and you can pay 3 to copy it again. Important thing is what happens if I copy something with a recur. First thing that happens when I play this combo here, let me do this vertically maybe. This is just not wanting to work for me. Everything looks really goofy on this camera with the, that'll work. Copy the effect of Naka. So I've played Naka. Let's say I had plenty of insight to work with. I gain 3, return a void, pay 3, gain another 3, return a void if I have one. I've gained at least 6 power. Divine Ascara, copy it. Now I'm up to 9 power. If I have the 3, I can recur the copy of Naka for another 3. Now I'm up to 12, but I've paid this 3 twice. I've paid 6 to get up to 12 power. Now I can pay 3 to copy the copy effect. Alright, cool. I'm going to now pay my 9th insight to gain 3 more and go up to 15. And I have the option to pay my 12th insight to go up to 18 power. Oh gosh, that was a lot of stuff. Same thing with things like Evi. Maybe you play this on Evi and you stack the deck. Then you pay 3 to stack the deck again. Then you pay 3 to copy Evi a whole new time and stack the deck again. Then you pay 3 a whole new time on the recur of the second copy to stack the deck again. That's not even counting the first time you played Evi and had the chance to stack the deck and maybe stack the deck again. However much insight you have, you can have your entire next hand just be heavy, 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 heavy. I think it's funny when that happens because everyone underestimates all these cards in the center that are 2-point cards, and they just stack the deck with whatever was out there, getting a couple points here and having a mix of runes and power in their next hand. Just stick a whole bunch of heavies on there because Glover's in the center, steal something big, swing the game, end it. Or Torment Legionary, make sure you have 3 heavies coming up. Make sure you kill it and get whatever big things out there. In this case, probably Dartha, or you'd have just stacked it on your deck with heavy. Anyway, Divine Ashkara gets absolutely bonkers if you have enough insight saved up. When I know this is in my deck, I'm more likely to hold plenty of insight than I am on other things, hoping I can recur a recurring thing with the recur copy. Wow, that was a lot of words. I hope that made sense. Alright, Loa Dream Dragon. Roll the Delirium die. You never know what you're going to get from this, but since the average result is at least a couple of cards or some reasonable resources, if you have a mixed build deck, this is not a bad card. It has 4 points, but it's not controllable. That's really its only downside, is you can't control what you're going to get out of it. Keep in mind that if you roll the 6 insight, most people are so used to anytime they roll 6 insight, they just take 1 out of the bucket and roll again. This is a good time to bank it and use it on a different turn when you want to take that risk rather than definitely do it right away. Sometimes it's better to bank that or use it for recur costs or monster recurs. Alright, and then the final card of the set. If a Scrapbot Scrapper is a 20 out of 10, this is a 21 out of 10. This is the only card in this set I value higher than the Scrapbot. Okay, Scepter I value higher than the Scrapbot. I don't actually value Core more. I really don't. Sorry, guys. Hate to tell you that. I don't even necessarily value Evi that unless these other ones are already out in the center. But destroy a monster in the center or the void, put it on the bottom of the deck. Instant kill anywhere. If you've killed something with power and then you have Emry, you can kill it again in the void. Gosh, that's effective. You are never going to have a bad turn with this. No matter, by the time you have this in your deck, there have been some monsters out. There is nothing that will keep there from being void options for you to kill. You can't go wrong with Emry. Emry wins so many games just on the utter nonsense of a last turn Glover or a last turn Carrion and roll the dice a couple of times on top of your 5 points. There's just so much you can do with this. The mileage never ends. The instant kill for 4, it just isn't that great. Instant kill anything, anywhere, except for the deck. Oh, yeah, can't go wrong there. That's it for Delirium. I hope you found this interesting. Sorry that this was way longer than I expected it to be. Hopefully it was useful.